Hello and welcome to SIWI Corner. My name is Georgette and I work for the Stockholm International Water Institute. And every day this week, right here, we have been asking, what are we getting wrong with water and how do we get it right? Today, we're going to be talking about innovation. The consensus that business as usual is over. We need to change and we need to change things now. And when I say innovation, it may conjure up a huge range of ideas in your minds. For example, many consider that the electric car is a relatively recent innovation in motoring, whilst others are aware that the first successful electric car made its debut over 100 years ago. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking about innovation, and I'm going to be joined by Henning from our water and sanitation team, and Elin from Prosperous Planet. So Henning, what does innovation mean in your field?
Yeah, so innovation is quite a broad concept, of course, and it can mean slightly different things to different people. But at the very basic level, it means a new idea which is transferred into practical reality. And that can be a new product, or it could be a new service, or to deliver a service in a new and different way. And people might see something that's innovative to be at different stages of the process as well. Some people might see an innovation, that's the idea, that's the innovation. And some people might see the innovation as something that has actually been tried and tested and works. So it should be able to be scaled up, right? So as you said, I work in WASH, and we try to reach SDG 6. And we're always talking about services, safely managed services. So when we talk about innovation, we talk about ways of improving those services, reaching everyone with safely managed services. And this can be on a formal level or an informal level, trying to get more people to achieve safely managed services, or it could come from necessity, where there is no service whatsoever, and we try to get any service. Any service is better than no service to people.
Elin?
I have a slightly different take, of course. I mean, we are business consultants helping companies essentially navigate in the Anthropocene. I mean, there are so many challenges today, and we have to really rethink how we do business today and how we are prosperous. And I mean, there's been this idea and this trend that we're moving towards sustainability. Okay, yeah, it's great, do less bad, but what really is important when it comes to the innovation here is that you move beyond that point. So don't do less bad, move beyond the break-even point. So you actually need to transform your business idea and business models, and that's what we really try to do. And that's innovation for me right now.
Okay, good. So good that we have two slightly different perspectives here. Before we carry on, is there any sort of myth you want to bust about innovation? Anything that you think innovation isn't?
Yeah, maybe that innovation is always something new and exciting and sexy and cool. I mean, that aspect of innovation definitely exists. And we could just look at the Stockholm Junior Water Prize winners to see some really cool bits of innovation in water. And I urge everyone in the room and everyone online to go and see those things, because it's truly inspiring to see what these young people have been able to achieve in terms of innovation at the age of whatever, 15, 16, 17. Humbling to compare what at least me had achieved by that age. And those things that they've achieved, it's complex chemistry, complex physics, down to very practical solutions. But a lot of innovation in water and sanitation, at least, is quite boring, and it relates to service delivery arrangements, assigning accountability, governance aspects. So not very exciting in terms of a new cool tech product, blockchain, whatever, but it's really important if we are to achieve sustainable services.
I agree with you. I mean, there are so many inventions and great ideas that are being hatched each day. I think one of the things that come to my mind is that we always kind of assume that the best invention will prevail, but I mean, and that the market's invisible hand somehow is going to pick up that best idea, and that is the one that's going to be like the solution, the innovation. But for a good idea to really come to a sustainable business idea and to be a thriving business, that takes a lot more know-how and so many details as well. And we've seen some of these juniors projects that are actually taking place and becoming a thriving business. That's great, but not all of the best ideas get there.
Absolutely. So where do you see then the focus being or trends being when it comes to innovation? And if it's not always this first thing we think about, like a shiny, brand new, sexy, to use your word, idea?
Yeah, so in water, a lot of the trends that we see is nature-based solutions, so using ecosystems and how they work to achieve water management outcomes. So that can be things like restoring wetlands and restoring rivers to the way that they used to be, things like this. But also to start using more environmentally friendly ways to treat water and treat wastewater, where before this was quite an environmentally friendly way. And again, going back to the Stockholm Junior Water Prize, there were some great innovations there in those fields. There was one using algae to desalinate water, and like saline intrusion is a big problem. It's really energy inefficient, using a lot of chemicals, and such an innovation using algae to improve this process, that could really be a game changer for people living in coastal communities, for example. There was also another one using coffee grounds to remove heavy metals in wastewater from industries, also very cool, from Italy, of course. And then a third one, which was about using enzymes to break down plastic. And plastic pollution is, of course, a big issue. Big issue generally. But otherwise, in terms of the more boring side, there are a lot of innovations in service delivery arrangements, and particularly to try to bring the private sector, what you're talking about, business models, having new business models and bringing the private sector in to release some of the capital that we need. We heard in the opening of the World Water Week that there's a huge financing gap when it comes to water and sanitation, or water in general. The private sector could actually bring some of those capital in. So there is where I think we need the most innovation in creating context-specific service delivery models that incentivize the private sector to create affordable services for those who need it the most.
I want to pick up on that idea about using the circularity. I mean, this is one of the biggest trends. It's been a trend for a while, but now we're starting to see actual products that are based on circularity. Coming over here, I picked up a drink, for instance, and it's food waste or fruit that would otherwise have been wasted. This was unthinkable a couple of years ago, but now there's a viable product, and with a profit margin, of course. And so I think that some of these trends are there. They need to be strengthened, of course. And then there's another trend that we're seeing, at least in Europe, with the regulatory framework. I mean, there are lots of changes happening now, especially in the European Union with the taxonomy and with the Green New Deal. And this is really... It's still tricky, it's quite confusing matter to navigate, but at the same time it's really picking up the interest and it's building up to a critical mass. And I think that's really, really important, both to leverage and release some of the investment that's needed, but also to capitalize on each other's ideas and building on that. And for the business community, it's a very important driver, because no one wants to be the follower. Everyone wants to be the trailblazer, and that's important as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the enabling environments that you guys are describing seem to be kind of fundamental to then innovation achieving results, and maybe not just being innovation that doesn't then get, say, picked up if it doesn't have that environment it needs. And there is often a lot of focus on the starting stage of a project than necessarily the continuation or results collection, monitoring, maintenance. So what should people be thinking about when innovating or looking for innovative aspects or perspectives? What should they be thinking about to ensure long-term results so that this innovation comes to fruition?
to me, this relates a lot to what I was mentioning before about like the two different types of innovation which has existed in the water and sanitation and hygiene sector. One is this sort of vertical integration where you have a centralized pipe system and you try to connect more people to that system. It might already be delivering safely managed services. And then you have this other part, which is the more localized systems building from below, where you create your own sort of model for people who need it the most or might be in a marginalized area. And previously, these two types of innovation have been almost in competition with each other. They've been managed by different stakeholders and not cooperated at all. And if we are to reach SDG 6, we can't have this sort of two different systems working and no cooperation between these things. So there are problems with both. It takes a long time to connect new users and it's costly. And when it comes to these systems building from below, they often stop in the pilot phase. It's not often that they get the momentum to be scaled up and be included in the formal system. And this is what we need. We need it to be included in the formal system. We need the utilities and the service providers and the service authorities to recognize that there could be two different types of systems that are working at the same time. And for that, we need the enabling environment to be able to do so. Regulation you were talking about, yes, on a global scale and a regional scale, but also on a country scale and on a municipal scale, for example, if that's where the two different systems exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And Elin?
I agree completely. I mean, we need to look at not just the service user, but the service provider. What do they need to fill their niche and to fill the need that they have? Then the other thing is finding the profitability in it. I mean, from the business perspective, you have to make ends meet, especially. But I think that it's also for the long term, you have to have the holistic take. You can't zoom in. You can't just try to look at climate, for instance. You have to look at human rights, plastic waste, all of these different lenses that we have, and using water to reach all of that connectivity. If you use the water as a thread throughout your business idea, then you get that. So I love that about water.
Interesting. And I could talk to you guys about this for the rest of the day, but we have got just a couple of minutes left. So I'd ask you, if you want everyone that's listening here and online, if you want them to take away one last thing or thought or approach when it comes to innovation, what would that be? I can start with you, Elin.
Well, I'd hate for everyone to leave and say, okay, but what did I get out of that? So I always want to leave with examples. And in this case, we have a tool that's called Planetary Possibilities, collecting a lot of excellent, good examples, both on regulatory issues and also innovations. And really to just try to understand what makes you tick. What is that thing that pushes beyond break-even sustainability? And I'd like to leave with that. So great examples are there. Just go and look.
Planetary Possibilities.
Planetary
Thank you so much. And Henning?
I will check it out, I promise. And yeah, for me, I just want to raise this sort of negative aspect about innovation, which we have touched upon a little bit, that innovation should not crowd out what we already know. And I think that's important. There can be too much focus on especially the tech part of innovation. And people think that it's sexy to spend on cool, new, innovative things, but not on the same old stuff that we know. And we could argue that when it comes to this technology and the infrastructure, we know what works, at least for rural service delivery. So that's quite well mastered. But that isn't to say that it isn't complex, but the complex part is the enabling environment part. It's how we are delivering these services, accountability, coordination. So my final words would be that we should focus on the enabling environment. We should focus on financing. We should focus on political will. Those are the key things. Put our money where our mouth is, and perhaps we need a little less innovation and a little bit more action.
Great final words from both of you there. And so as we've heard, innovation does not action make. And innovation can be anything from an invention, but it could be a new approach, new implementation method, new sources of financing. So we need to stop thinking of what's sexy, to carry on using your word. We need to rewire our brains. We need to give more space to those who don't need their brains rewiring, like the Stockholm Junior Water Prize and their generation. We have countless solutions to the water challenges facing the world, its nature, and people. So let's make enabling factors sexy. Let it be political will or finance models. So thank you to Henning and Elin and all my guests that have joined me over these SIWI Corners. Enjoy the rest of your days, and don't miss, we have a wrap-up straight after this and the closing here at 4. Thank you.